ready here. So we're gonna. What do you think would be? What did you think of? First of all, what did you think of Marcus Buckingham's presentation, just overall?
I think it's very current. It's very appropriate for where we are. His comments about the generations. I'm a baby boomer, and then there's the X's and the Y's, and they're clearly different. Yes. Well, congratulations to be a Y. I think the interesting thing about Marcus was his presentation was so honest. I mean, he was so believable and so credible. Not only just his demeanor, but his data. So he was very strong in that regard.
Okay, is there a way, what do you think, how you could portray this in a Christian point of view, what Marcus had to say? Do you think we could use that in a Christian view?
Sure. When you think about his comments about strengths and you put that in the biblical context of spiritual gifts, when you take the scripture on spiritual gifts, it really does say what makes you feel good is rewarded by God blessing you. So if you think about the red cards and the green cards, if you wrote down, I did something and I felt that the Lord blessed me, then I write that on the green card. If I don't get the blessing, I write it on the red card. So the alignment is absolutely biblical.
How have you been able to use this in your life personally, the whole playing on your strengths and relating it to biblical truth?
Well, in my life, my singular life, I've been able to really improve my marriage, frankly, because the spousal relationship, I got to realize that if I apply my strengths and respect hers, then together we have a more cohesive relationship, which obviously makes things work better. Now, in my professional life, I'm an executive coach in a Christian environment. So when I think about these issues and I align those with spiritual gifts and align those on a godly kingdom purpose, how could you be more happy if you know I'm using what I was given by God to do what God told me to do? Ta-da!
Well, what would you say would be one of your biggest strengths?
Oh, my favorite strength is teaching. So when I gather content like Marcus gave us tonight, I just immediately start laying that content into the ways I can use it to the people that I coach. So I'm already noodling, you know. I know I can think of 20 people off the top of my head that need to know this. So I am improved as a Christian coach by applying these principles.
What is it in coaching? What is it that you normally see? I know he shows some statistics about what the general trend of what U.S. seems to think about fixing weaknesses or just focusing on strengths. What is it that you normally see when you're coaching?
I call it noisy head disease. So many CEOs are trying to be great multitaskers, and they're trying to solve all the problems by themselves, or they struggle with delegation, or they'll delegate something to somebody, but they're worried about it. They never really get the release in their mind, so they have noisy head disease. So many things going off in their head that they lose the real focus that they need to kind of do an up periscope and say, oh, now I understand what my company needs. Because just like an individual can have strengths and they need to manifest those, so can a company. Because when you get all the people pulling in the same direction, applying their strengths, then the combined strengths of them becomes the strength of the company. So when a CEO has noisy head disease, they're not going to see their own corporate strengths.
So what is it that you think they need to do?
Pay attention. Frequently, particularly founding CEOs, the CEO that actually starts the company and does the startup, they're so their personality is so ingrained in the business that they can't delete themselves from it, and therefore they can't see it as a business. They see it as a reflection of their personality. So what I would say is the use of these principles that we heard tonight gets the person some perspective so they can step out and use the perspective rather than their own attitudes to evaluate their own business.
Well, one last question for you before I let you go, because I want to be able to play to your strengths, and you said your biggest strength was to be a teacher. If you were to tell someone who's just starting out in a business now and running, going, as a Christian, what advice would you give them in light to everything you've heard and everything you've experienced and practiced in your own life?
Well, that's a pretty interesting question. That's a challenge. I would say that to start a Christian business, you got to make sure that your values are the same values that the company uses. When there's an inconsistency between how you are reacting personally and you're professing to your employees that you're going to have Christian values, and me, the CEO, starts breaking some of those, all of a sudden all the employees are smart enough to say, that's not what he said we were supposed to do, and then you lose all the congruency that should be around these spiritual values. So I would say the first thing you're going to do if you're going to be an entrepreneur, whether Christian or not, you better know yourself really well, because entrepreneurialism is, I've had it told to me, it's just like that millisecond before you know you're going to have a car wreck. It's just a gut-wrenching experience.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you talking with us, and I just wish you the best in everything that you do, and thank you for what you do.